All right, we're back with another round of Rising Qs where we answer the questions you submitted. Let's see the first one we've got here. All right, so Emily, should electeds who are accused of inciting, helping insurrectionists be prosecuted by the DOJ? And did Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony or anything about the January 6 hearings change your mind on what happened that day?
There's a lot there. So the first part of the question, it depends on what we're looking at in terms of incitement. I have not seen anything from an elected official so far leading up to January 6th that I think should legally fit that definition. Like, I don't think incitement should be considered very broad for speech reasons. I don't think that legal category should be very broad. I have not seen anything from an elected official that I think should legally qualify as incitement. I do think that Donald Trump was gravely mistaken in the way he talked about the election. I think there are some elected Republicans who talked about the election in very dangerous ways. Ben Sasse put out a statement that I still think captures it perfectly well. This was right after January 6th. He said they were playing with fire by flirting with these election conspiracy theories that were almost certainly going to culminate. I mean, people feel, and I was there, I was watching what was happening on January 6th to report on it. A lot of very disenfranchised people who feel like they have been trampled by the establishment over and over and over again. And to exploit that sense, I think is completely disgusting. So I don't know that there's anything prosecutable, but I do think that they, in a general broad sense, were responsible by playing with that kind of fire. On the Cassidy Hutchinson testimony, no. I think the only thing that really changed, and that's what sort of bothers me about this melodrama, is that we know Donald Trump was, quote, playing with fire. We know all of that. We know what was happening behind closed doors. We're getting some more specific details that make for good television and make for a good sort of true crime production, which is what the committee is doing, and intentionally so. But I don't think anything was sort of materially changed. Did you think that anything was? I think you did.
Yeah, I did, because I think that, so you always had two obvious things happening. You had, Trump, using the media, his Twitter account, and the courts to challenge the election results. Like, you knew that happened. Like, we know that happened.
Yeah.
He did it. He still does it to this day. Side note, he lost fair and square.
Yes.
Yes, he did not win the election. Joe Biden won the election. So we know that he did that. It was different in kind of degree than other people have done in the past, and even Al Gore just immediately folded after the Supreme Court ruled 5-4. But they both fought in the courts in 2000. People fight in courts. Yeah. Like, you challenge results, you do recounts like that. Like, that's within the realm of kind of acceptable, legal and political challenges to election results. Secondly, we know that there was a sacking of the Capitol by a mob that thought the election was stolen and thought that they were going to save their country. Yeah. That they were going to block this illegitimate transfer of power from Republicans to Democrats. What I think we learned is that we know that in Trump and Mark Meadows' minds, that these were connected, that these two things now were of a piece. And so that takes Trump's legal and kind of PR challenges to the campaign and takes them out of that realm and puts them into the realm of a coup. Because...
What's the specific thing that Hutchinson said?
Well, that Cipollone told her, you cannot let the crowd go down there. You cannot let Trump go down there, because we will be breaking every law in the books. It'll be obstruction of justice. It will be obstructing the Electoral Count Act. I think his quote was something like, it breaks every crime in the book.
Yeah, he said that, right? According to her.
Right, according to her. And so he's the general counsel. So he's telling Mark Meadows, or he's a counsel.
Right.
He's telling Mark Meadows and he's telling Trump, this is illegal. To use this type of show of force to try to overturn the election takes it out of the realm of just politics and puts it into the realm of, an extrajudicial, extra-electoral, extra-political type of usurpation of power, which you can go and look through the federal statutes to find the right ones. But I think we have to acknowledge that if we saw this happening in another country, a president saying that these election results are untrue, a president organizing a mob and directing them down to the Capitol in a show of force, that we would understand that for what it was.
But how did he organize the riot when he instructed specifically a peaceful procession down Constitution Avenue? Again, I think he should have known better, and I think he probably did. But how could he have been? How did he organize what turned out to be a riot?
Well, for one, I mean, so he told Mark Meadows on the night of January 5th, and this is new information that we got, that he needed to call Mike Flynn and Roger Stone to help organize whatever was happening the next day.
It was a demonstration.
It's a demonstration, but Flynn and Roger Stone are in contact with the more paramilitary members of this demonstration. Also, according to Hutchinson, he knew, or he believed, maybe they weren't as armed as he thought they were, but he believed, according to Hutchinson, that they were armed. And that, he suggested, hey, take the magnetometers away, they're not here to hurt me, and they're gonna go down later to the Capitol, so just leave them with their guns. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of it was either concealed carry, or there wasn't a lot of evidence of like armed people.
There really wasn't.
Certainly, they didn't use any.
Yeah, there was like bear spray and shields and riot
But
gear.
Trump, now it's going to his consciousness. Like if she's to be believed, he believed that they were armed, and he's telling them to go down there, saying, "Be peaceful." It doesn't get you out when everything else you're saying, you have to fight for your country. If you lose it today, it's gone forever.
What he was saying, and this is the moment that for me, I'll never forget it. I was in the crowd and winced. He said, the election is being stolen. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I remember thinking, if that was correct, if we believed that was correct, you can really understand why people would do something drastic if you believe that the Senate is literally stealing an election out from under your nose. Yeah, and again, I think we're being told to move on, but I do think, like, even a lot of people say Trump was too slow to tell people to go home. But even that, when he did put out that statement, I think that told us that he already saw those things as being connected in the way that you say that Hutchinson not revealed, but like maybe emphasized. I just feel like we already knew that.
Right, and there's some dispute over whether or not he lunged for the steering wheel, but he has said that he tried to get the Secret Service to take him down to the Capitol, and they told him no. Trump has acknowledged that part.
Yeah, and again, I almost think if he thought it was a coup, I think it makes no sense that he would, or if he thought that it was going to be really violent or that it was really violent. I honestly think he didn't maybe trust media reports initially because he's so distrustful of media. And again, this granular back and forth is, I think, beside the point, because there's so, like, the Capitol has not been properly secured. Democrats are using this as an electoral wedge issue. We know that Donald Trump acted irresponsibly and recklessly, and that there were some Republicans who enabled it. And so getting into the true crime minutia drives me crazy on January 6th, because I just feel like it plays into the hands of people who don't actually give a damn about what happened. Not you, but like Nancy Pelosi.
I do think that the linkage of these two things together, and Meadows and Trump seeing them as part of their strategy, means that they were really going for this. They wanted this to work. They wanted the mob to go down to Congress, pressure them to either shut down the proceedings, which then he lives to fight another day, or pressure them into kicking the proceedings back to these state legislatures, which they would then pressure to send fake electors back that make Trump president. The mob was a central part of that, what I would call a coup attempt, and I think there should be consequences. To go back to the prosecuting question, I think put it before a jury, and I think Meadows too, because I think the future chiefs of staff have to know that if you come after our peaceful transfer of power and you fail, there could be consequences for you.
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to move on. All I would say to that is, I mean, we don't have to get into it.
We'll do yes.
There's another question.
We'll do yes or no answers.
Yes or no. We'll move on. The other Rising hosts also answered this one, but I guess we're giving our opinions too. What the heck is Prime Minister Johnson thinking? Forever war in Ukraine instead of negotiating peace? What is the UK-US gaining from Ukraine becoming the new Afghanistan? That question comes from Anna Catalonia. Ryan, what do you think about that?
I think a lot of countries, like the US and UK, see foreign policy as a geopolitics as zero sum, and if they can hurt another country, then they think that helps them.
Mm-hmm.
Or if another and now I think there also is a shock to what Brian Deese called the liberal world order, the idea that like you're going to have a country that gets out of diplomacy, gets out of the realm of diplomacy, and just puts 100,000 troops on the border and then marches them in and starts killing people. And I mean, just the other day they blew up a mall with 1,000+ people in it in Kyiv. It's absolutely it is horrifying, and the publics in Europe and the UK, this speaks less to us, though also to us, are absolutely horrified at watching it unfold and wondering where it goes from there.
Well, yeah, and this is, again, I don't think we've fully reckoned with the post-nuclear order. I mean, I think nuclear capability is so central to all of these relationships that the fear of encroaching powers that are questionable in their stewardship of nuclear technology from the perspective of somebody like a Brian Deese, somebody who sees themselves as a guardian of the liberal world order, is frightening. And I actually think that's reasonable in a lot of cases. It's probably why we disagree on Cuba policy, and we would have disagreed on Cuba policy. Well, lastly, since we spent 20 minutes debating January 6th, Julian Navarrete asks, cover the New York primary. Why is it split into two separate dates? Any upsets? What do you think, Ryan?
I don't know of any huge upsets. The answer to why is it split into two separate dates is a simple one: to suppress the vote. Mm-hmm. Like the New York Democratic machine relies on low turnout. They want just they have always, going back to Tammany Hall, they've relied on their kind of the power of their machine to turn out a small number of voters and for everybody else to be totally apathetic. That's actually, it backfired against Joe Crowley, because he wound up getting something like 8,000 votes in a primary, and AOC had something like 12,000. And so that was the kind of like flaw in the Death Star's plans. But in general, the thinking among elite politicians, machine politicians, is that the lower turnout you can have, then the better chance the establishment has, because you get the regular primary voters out and they like the people that they like, that they know about, and so they separate out the different elections and spread them out so that people have even less incentive. Because if everybody is on the ballot at the same time, you come out like with the presidential election being the most obvious example, and it goes in degrees from down there.
When it's a vicious cycle, because people who are choosing not to vote because they're busy or because they just genuinely feel powerless, and like their one ballot isn't going to make a difference, are then further disempowered when you have low turnout. They're already less likely to turn out, and then they're continuing to be less likely.
And some of this had to do with the way that redistricting kept getting done and redone.
Our election law is an incredible mess in this country, and to tie a bow on all of this and come full circle, there are reasons that people on the right and on the left are completely distrustful of our voting process in this country. Whether you go back to 2000, whether you go back to 2020, people have very good reasons, and the ruling class has absolutely no interest in seriously restoring trust in that process.
The New York Election Board is just a place for cronies to be put by the machine. And New York State is just pathetic when it comes to voting.
And Time Magazine wrote a whole story from Molly Ball about how powerful tech CEOs used their money to sway the election by basically buying power in different places. And that's not to say Donald Trump lost, but it was heavily, heavily influenced by an organization of very, very wealthy people. And I think that's definitely a place where left and right can agree, hopefully.
We definitely need better funding and better elections.
That's so true.
All right, good enough. That's it. So next time, please tweet out your rising Qs. You don't have to wait for us to ask. If you do #RisingQs, producers will see it, and we'll slap it in there. See if you can compete with these questions and do even better ones. We'll see.
We'll start rating them.
See you next time.